All right, everyone, have a look at this single extraordinary image. Now, this is more than just a painting. It's really a dream of a whole new world, captured at one of the most pivotal moments in European history. Through the eyes of one visionary artist, we can actually see the hopes, the anxieties, and the revolutionary ideas that were reshaping an entire continent. So, let's dive in.
So what we're looking at here is the first of 4 prints created back in 1848 by a French artist named Frédéric Sorrieu. He called it his dream. And it's important to remember this isn't a snapshot of reality, not at all. It's a utopian vision of the world he hoped would emerge. So the question for us is, what does this dream tell us about the new forces of nationalism and liberalism that were forging the modern world? To answer that, here's our game plan. We're going to break down Sorrieu's masterpiece into a few key themes. We'll start with the utopian vision itself. Then we'll look at the symbols of the old world being destroyed. After that, we'll examine the new social classes driving this change, the ideology that fueled them, and finally, the powerful idea of the nation itself.
So what exactly was Sorrieu's dream? Well, in his own words, it was a world made up of democratic and social republics. I mean, you have to understand, this was an incredibly radical idea at a time when most of Europe was still ruled by monarchs and emperors. And if we look closely at this procession, we see men and women, people from all social backgrounds, all marching together. This is the utopian part of his vision, right? It's this idealistic image of fraternity, where people are united not by their allegiance to some king, but by their shared identity as a nation.
Now, for a new world to be born, an old one has to pass away. So let's turn our attention down to the foreground of the image, because it tells a story of destruction and revolution.
See all that stuff on the ground? You can see broken crowns, scepters, and armor, the shattered symbols of monarchy and empire. Now, this isn't just litter, it's a powerful political statement. It represents the decisive rejection of absolute rule. So what do we mean by absolutist? Well, an absolutist government is one where a monarch holds supreme, unchecked power. It's the very system that movements like the French Revolution were determined to dismantle. And this brings us right to the legacy of the French Revolution. The revolution's most fundamental achievement was the transfer of sovereignty, that is, ultimate power, from the hands of a single monarch to the people, to the body of citizens. It proclaimed that the people would, from now on, constitute the nation and shape its destiny. This was all reinforced with new symbols, a new flag, and these powerful ideas of the fatherland and the citizen who enjoyed equal rights. So, who were the people pushing for all these changes? Well, the answer lies in a really dramatic social shift, the decline of the old aristocracy and the rise of a dynamic new middle class. On one hand, you had the old power, the landed aristocracy. They were a tiny elite, united by family ties and owning vast tracts of land. But a new force was rising, the middle class, made up of industrialists, businessmen, and professionals. Their power didn't come from land. It came from commerce. And it was this educated, liberal group that championed the ideas of national unity and individual rights. And the core ideology of this new middle class had a name: liberalism. So what did liberalism actually mean to them back in the 19th century? What were they talking about? Well, politically, liberalism was revolutionary. It stood for individual freedom and legal equality for all citizens. It demanded a government that ruled by the consent of the governed, not by some divine right. And it called for an end to the privileges of the aristocracy and the church, all guaranteed by a constitution and a representative parliament. And you can see Sorrieu places this idea of liberty right at the very heart of his painting. As was common after the French Revolution, he personifies liberty as a female figure, a kind of beacon for this whole procession of nations. And look at what she's holding. In one hand is the torch of enlightenment, which symbolizes reason. In the other, she holds the Charter of the Rights of Man, declaring the rights of every citizen. This brilliantly illustrates the twin pillars of liberalism: reason and rights. But for this business-minded middle class, liberalism wasn't just political, it was also economic. They demanded the freedom of markets. This meant getting rid of the crazy web of internal customs duties, standardizing all the weights and measures, and creating a common currency so that goods and capital could move freely. For them, a unified nation was also an efficient single market. Okay, now let's look again at that long train of people. This isn't just a random crowd. It represents the powerful new force of nationalism. It really is a procession of nations.
Sorrieu groups people by their flags and their national costumes, defining them as distinct nations. Leading the way are the United States and Switzerland, who were already established nation-states. They're followed by revolutionary France, and right behind them, interestingly, are the German peoples, carrying a flag for a nation that didn't even exist yet. In 1848, this flag was a powerful expression of liberal hopes to unify the many German-speaking states into one single nation.
And you have to remember, all of this was happening in a very specific context. The Napoleonic Wars had spread these revolutionary ideas all across Europe. Then, in 1815, the Vienna settlement tried to put the old monarchies back in charge, but it was really too late. By 1848, a huge wave of revolutions erupted across the continent, and Sorrieu's dream was painted at the absolute peak of this revolutionary fever.
So this leaves us with a critical question, one to think about. Sorrieu envisioned a world where nations lived together in democratic harmony. But as the age of nationalism really took hold, did it lead to the unity he dreamed of, or did it unleash new and powerful divisions? It's a tension that would go on to define the next century of history.